Charlie knew where the critical care unit was located at the University Hospital. He parked his car close to the entrance doors where the elevators were located and went directly to the third-floor nurses' station. "Officer Wilkins, HPD badge number 582. Charlie's voice was pitched low and urgent. "I think you had an Elise Campbell admitted earlier today?" He knew she had been, he called, admitting as soon as he'd walked out of the station. The charge nurse's name tag said, Brittany Hernandez, RN. "Yes, officer. She's here on the floor. Did you want to speak to the doctor?" "Sure, that would be great. Has she woken up yet?" "I don't know, officer. Let me page the doctor. Just have a seat there for a minute, please." Charlie glanced at the row of chairs lined up against the wall. There was no one sitting there, so he nodded at the nurse and took a seat in the middle of the row, directly facing the nurse's station. From here, he could see down one hall a short distance, but he couldn't see much else. "Is it usually this quiet around here?" Charlie fidgeted in the quiet. "At lunchtime? On a weekday?" "It can be," the nurse smiled. As the seconds dragged away into minutes, the uncomfortable silence was broken by a tall scarecrow of a man coming out of a second hallway. He walked quickly to Charlie, who stood up to greet him. "I'm Dr. Adams and your Officer Wilkins, Officer Charles Wilkins. I'm here to see Miss Campbell if she's awake." "Have a seat, officer." The doctor sat down a couple seats from Charlie, so he sat back down in his seat, leaving one chair empty between them. "Miss Campbell was admitted earlier today with a possible concussion. We did a CT scan and confirmed no fracture. Her EEG still shows she is unconscious, but she isn't comatose. We've given her a pretty strong cocktail of pain meds, so when she does wake up, she probably won't be very coherent. In case you were thinking you might want to interview her, is she a witness in a case or something?" Charlie considered his response. "She's assisting the department with an ongoing investigation." The doctor recognized the term ongoing investigation and understood the meaning behind it. He'd get no further information from the police about his patient, at least not right now. "If you can tell me anything about what happened to her, that would be helpful for us in continuing her care and treatment." It wouldn't hurt to at least try to get more information, he thought. Charlie paused again before he replied. There was an equipment malfunction. Miss Campbell was knocked backwards and hit her head on linoleum." The doctor visibly winced. "So she didn't have a seizure that you're aware of, nothing like that?" Charlie shook his head. "No, nothing like that. I think she had mentioned she felt like she was getting a migraine, but nothing else. And that was before she hit her head." "That's actually quite helpful, officer. Thanks. We've requested her records from her PCP, but haven't gotten those yet. Anything else you can think of?" "No, sorry. She really was just helping us out for the first time, and this happened." "Well, we've made her as comfortable as possible. We've also followed the request that her personal effects stay with her. Not our standard protocol, you understand, but the request sounded very firm." The doctor watched for Charlie's reaction. "That's great. Thank you. I know when she wakes up that she will be relieved to see those. Can I see her for just a second?" The doctor pursed his lips. "You can stick your head through the doorway. You won't be able to see much. We have all the lights turned off in the room. Just for a second, though. The hallway lights are pretty bright, so we want to limit her exposure to that as much as possible." "Sure, no problem. I just want to have a quick glance." Charlie tried to keep the relief from being evident in his voice. The doctor nodded and stood up, walking around the nurse's station. Charlie followed along behind him, aware of his utility belt squeaking as they walked briskly down the hallway. It was very quiet. They reached a door marked 307. A handwritten name tag under that said A. Campbell. The doctor stopped at the closed door and carefully turned the latch, allowing the latch to disengage and the door to barely open. Just a quick look. The doctor stepped away from the door. Charlie nodded and leaned against the door frame, nudging the door open an inch. A sliver of light from the hallway cut the darkness in two. He could barely see a still form, curled in a fetal position under a thin blanket. Everything was in shades of black. It reminded Charlie of the lens and whatever it was that it had projected. The doctor cleared his throat quietly, and Charlie lifted a finger. One more second. He strained his eyes to make out a face, but the light was too dim for that. He thought she was facing the door. He could almost see the lens held against her chest, but that might have been wishful thinking on his part. He could at least see the box with the shopping bag tucked into the bed rail facing the door. He smiled. If the bag and the box were there, the lens should be. He nodded and leaned back, pulling the door closed softly. The doctor nodded and stepped back, so Charlie stepped away from the door as well. Pulling a card from his wallet, he handed it to the doctor. "Give me a call when she wakes up, or if her condition changes. That's my direct line, which is being forwarded to my cell phone. I'll get the call immediately. We do need to interview her when she can talk. Just a few questions, before anyone else has questions for her." He glanced at the doctor. "The case she's helping us with is confidential. I know people sometimes talk while they're sleeping or if they're on pain meds. Anything she says is confidential. And we need to know if she says anything and what she says." The doctor frowned. "We'll call you when her condition changes. I doubt she'll be talking anytime soon. You're welcome to wait if you want, but it might be several hours. Still, I'd get something to eat if I was you, if you haven't had lunch yet." Charlie glanced at his watch, 12:22. He hadn't realized he was starving until he saw the time. He nodded. "I'll just grab something quick. I'll be waiting for your call. Thanks again, Dr. Adams. You don't go by Patch by any chance, do you?" The doctor laughed quietly. "I have been called that in the past, unfortunately, yes." Charlie chuckled as well and waved at the doctor, walking back towards the nurse's station and out to the elevators. There was a Taco Bell around the corner. He didn't really care for that food, but it was close, good enough for now.